All right, let's go on the record, please. Good evening. This is a public comment hearing in the matter of Northeast Energy Center LLC, docketed as Northeast Energy Center LLC, EFSB 18-04/DPU 18-96. My name is Catherine Sedor. I am an attorney with the Massachusetts Energy Facilities Siting Board and the presiding officer in this case. With me tonight are the other members of the Siting Board staff who will be conducting this proceeding. To my far right is Charlene DeBoer. Charlene is a regional planner with the Siting Board staff. To Charlene's left is Dean Hazel. Dean is also an analyst on the Siting Board staff. Directly behind me, so that you can't see him at all, is Andrew Green, and Andy is the director of the Siting Board. And to Mr. Green's left is John Young. John is the technical director for the Siting Board. Northeast Energy Center, or NEC, will be making a presentation tonight regarding its proposed liquefied natural gas, or LNG, facility, as was described in the notice for this public comment hearing. After NEC's presentation, those who have signed the speaker sign-up sheet in the back will have the opportunity to ask questions or make comments on the record tonight. As I mentioned, we have a court reporter here to record all that is said in the hearing tonight, including questions that you may put to the company regarding the proposed project. Before turning to the company's presentation, I would like just to very briefly describe the proposed project and the legal standards that will govern the Siting Board's review of the project and the process by which the board will make its decision to approve or not approve the project. NEC is seeking approval from the Energy Facilities Siting Board for a proposed new natural gas liquefaction, storage, and truck loading facility and associated infrastructure in the town of Charlton. NEC's preferred site for the facility is 249 Sturbridge Road, Route 20 in Charlton. The two main elements of the proposed project are the construction of a new 1.5-mile underground natural gas pipeline to carry natural gas from an existing underground Tennessee Gas Company pipeline in the area, already here in the area, to the proposed LNG facility. And to the LNG facility itself, which will have the capacity to cool the natural gas it receives to a liquid state, to store the liquefied gas on site, and then transfer the LNG by truck to gas company customers such as National Grid. NEC states that the LNG facility would enable its gas company customers to maintain reliable and economic natural gas services in the region. NEC has actually filed two petitions. The first petition seeks approval from the Siting Board, as I've mentioned, under General Laws, Chapter 164, Section 69J of the Siting Board statute. To receive approval for the project under this statute, the Siting Board is required to determine whether the project would provide a reliable energy supply for the Commonwealth with a minimum impact on the environment at the lowest possible cost. NEC also seeks a second approval from the siting board under General Laws, Chapter 40A, Section 3. This is a part of the zoning statute in Massachusetts. The company is seeking certain individual exemptions from the town's zoning bylaw and a comprehensive exemption from the bylaw to construct the project. To receive approval under this provision, NEC will need to demonstrate that its project is reasonably necessary for the convenience and welfare of the public. Before turning to the company's presentation, I want to briefly outline for you the siting board's role and the review process for energy facilities like the facility that NEC is proposing. I will also, again, very briefly just mention how people can get involved further in this proceeding after tonight's hearing. Tonight's public hearing constitutes the very beginning of the siting board's review of NEC's project. Over the course of the next several months, the siting board will require NEC to provide a significant amount of additional information regarding its proposed project. After completion of this information gathering process, referred to as discovery, the siting board will conduct evidentiary hearings in Boston. During the hearings, NEC will present witnesses, expert witnesses, including expert witnesses, to testify regarding all aspects of this project, including the need, reliability, environmental impacts, and cost of the project. The siting board and any other parties to this case have the opportunity to examine the company's witnesses under oath and to ask the company in writing to provide any additional information necessary to adequately review the company's petitions. The siting board will make its decision on the company's petitions after the discovery process has ended and evidentiary hearings have concluded. In terms of getting involved in the siting board review of the project, there are 3 different ways that a member of the public may get involved in the case. Each of these involves a different level of participation. The first way, of course, is to provide oral comments today on the record, or the asking of questions, the answers to which will be placed on the record. The siting board always reviews the comments that we receive here at the public hearing, and also any later written comments that you may want to submit regarding the project. And we frequently use the questions that you ask. The questions that you ask, the way it's most helpful to the siting board is that it tells us what is of most importance or of most concern to the people who live in the community in which the facility would be located if it is approved. The second way that we make good use of your comments, both oral and written, is that it helps us formulate questions and maybe even to take a little bit further the questions that you have asked. So your comments really are used by the siting board, and they really are helpful to us. The second way to get involved is has a little more process to it. That would be to formally request in writing that you be made what we call an intervener in the proceeding. An intervener has the legal status in the proceeding to request information from other parties to the case, including the company, to offer evidence, to present witnesses, to cross-examine all witnesses, to submit a brief at the end of evidentiary hearings, and ultimately to appeal the citing board's final decision if you disagree with some or all of the final decision. The third way to get involved would be to request, again in writing, to become a, quote, limited participant in the case. As a limited participant, you may receive copies of all of the documents that are sent back and forth between the parties and the citing board. And you may submit a brief at the end of hearings. You are not able, as a limited participant, to put witnesses on the stand or cross-examine other parties' witnesses. And you do not have a right to appeal the citing board's final decision. However, again, as I mentioned, you are able to write a brief, and I failed to mention that for both interveners and limited participants, you also will be given the right to present oral comments at the very end of the hearing when the actual citing board is sitting in Boston and are deliberating over whether to approve the company's petitions or not. At that point, before the citing board issues a decision, they will listen to each of the parties, including those who are interveners and those who are limited participants, so that the board gets to hear directly from you. All right, this is a little bit dry, I know, but just one more paragraph. I want to let you know a little bit more.
I can barely hear you back here. Is there a PA?
There is not.
There is not, okay.
I'm trying as hard as I can. I don't know how much louder I can get, but I'll try.
There's not a staircase, there's a fan over here that's on.
I'm sorry about that.
There are a few chairs in the front, by the way, if folks in the back are looking to seat themselves.
There are two seats right here. If two people might want those.
Yep, 3 people.
3. Oh.
3 chairs.
Would anyone else like to come up? Okay. You can do it later if you decide to. All right, if you decide that you'd like to become either an intervener, which is the same thing as a full party to the case, or a limited participant, there are specific rules and deadlines that you will need to meet. And copies of those regulations are on that table in the back. So even if you can't quite follow what I'm trying to explain tonight, you can find the requirements for filing one of these petitions in the back of the room. So the regulations are there, and copies of the notice that many of you probably received are also back there, and the notice also contains the information that you need to provide and the time by which you need to provide it. In terms of deadlines, if you want to file a petition to intervene or a petition for limited participant status, you need to do so by Friday, November 30th. Where do you send those petitions, assuming that you write one of them? Again, if you grab a copy of the notice or you have a copy of the notice that was mailed to you, that contains the citing board's US mail address in Boston and also our email address, yeah. And also on the notice are the company's, the name of the company's attorneys and how to reach them by either US mail or email. And again, I think as many of you know from the notice that was sent out, the siting board has its own specific website, and the link for that website is also contained at the bottom on the back page of the public hearing notice. And again, I think we have more than enough with us so that anyone who is interested in grabbing another copy of the notice can do that. All right, that's it for my piece. At this point, I invite NEC to present its project. And immediately after that, I will explain the procedures that will follow for taking questions and comments tonight. And we will hear from those of you who wish to speak. If I could ask counsel for NEC to identify himself for the record.
Yes, my name is James Avery. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Pierce Atwood in Boston, Massachusetts, and I'm representing NEC in this proceeding.
Thank you, Mr. Avery, and I believe that you are going to introduce a member of the project team who will present the company's slides this evening.
Thank you, Ms. Sedor. That is the intent. If I could just add two procedural points. I think Ms. Sedor suggested this is the very beginning of the proceeding. It's a rigorous process with discovery and evidentiary hearings and briefing. And there are three ways that folks can participate, and she covered those very thoroughly and completely. There's one additional offer I would like to make. If folks are not particularly comfortable in speaking at a public hearing in this format, there are a number of folks that are engineers, consultants that work on the project in the front of the room and a few in the back. If you're more comfortable after the hearing asking your questions, raising your concerns, we'll certainly all stay and address them and be pleased to speak with any of you at that point. I'd like to introduce Boris Brevnov. He's the managing partner of Northeast Energy Center and has been leading the development of this project. He will give a little bit of an overview on the need, the siting analysis, the benefits that this project will provide, and a little bit on some other design elements for the project. With that, Mr. Brevnov.
Good evening. And Madam Hearing Officer, Town Selectman, Town Administrator, and the neighbors. Thank you for hosting us tonight. Same, I will start probably on a little bit formal note, but second part will be more of a show and tell. So I hope I will be able to show certain images today and share with you as all the progress of the project development. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to a productive exchange with respect to our proposal to construct and operate state-of-the-art liquefaction and storage facility in Charlton. The facility will chill gas until it changes to a liquid form. It will then be loaded into trucks and delivered to one of the many LNG storage locations across the state. A great deal of engineering and design work has been done in connection with this proposal, and we have been in regular and frequent contact with the town officials, community leaders, representatives, and businesses. Such consultations are vital, and we will continue them throughout the development, permitting, construction, and operations of the facility. Such meetings allow us more direct dialogue with the community, and as Jim mentioned, we will continue them informal, like in today's setting, and informal after today's setting. And obviously, as we involved with this project, we are frequent in the town, so feel free to catch us, get in touch with us, and we will be glad to address any questions and to take any advice from you. Our petition included 2 sites in Charlton, each with slightly different flavor, slightly different opportunities. We will share our thoughts on the relative merits of each site and commit to considering your suggestions and comments as we proceed with development of these sites. We believe that both sites we are considering are highly appropriate and can provide substantial benefits to energy supply of the Commonwealth. One more time, we will stay over after the meeting to address any questions, as the team did during the town hall meeting before this past summer. Speaking of the team, we have few representatives today that will be glad to take your questions, comments, and address them today and or afterwards in one form or another. First, one more time, my name is Boris Brevnov. I'm with NSC, Northeast Energy Center, and I'm a managing partner. Our organization, Liberty Energy Trust, finance and involved in development all types of energy projects. Overall, we are not biased. We are agnostic. We mostly focus on financing of the projects. So our organization, in its turn, funded by endowments, foundations. So that's why when we make an investments, we take into account all types of considerations. We take into account engineering consideration, business, economics, environmental, community. We will share as much as we can today, and we'll continue to share this information as it develops. We have assembled, we believe, a great team across the nation, and that able to utilize the best global industry standards in LNG, and frankly the best local talent, because Massachusetts has always been home of LNG for decades. This is not a new technology for Massachusetts. Have been present for generations in Massachusetts, and we will be talking more about today, and we will be talking how we're planning to build on this competitive advantage of Massachusetts. You have already met Jim Avery. He's our Boston Regulatory Counsel. AJ Chavlanovsky, he's conducting not only presentation today, but any environmental questions. And it is pretty sophisticated. He's AFSP. Frankly, I'm electromechanical engineer by training, but environmental engineering did evolve big time. Any questions related to noise, traffic studies, archaeological studies, air studies, wetland studies. So this team is carrying it, and it's convenient. They are based in Maynard. It's environmental engineering firm, and they handle quite a few big and small types projects that may have environmental impact, and they helping us to minimize this impact on environment and on communities. Tom Quine, he is CEO and president of the North Star Industries, company based in Methuen, who has been with the project since its inception and keep pushing it forward. And his engineering company developed the design basis for this project. Tom's company has experience across the nation, but also in Massachusetts, building other LNG projects. Just to name one is Berkshire Gas LNG project in Berkshire, Massachusetts. John Klein brings experience of developing similar plants in Florida, Jamaica. As you mentioned, we take the best from the world, and he's working with our engineering and construction service providers. Some of them are actually in the room today, so feel free to ask them questions. Some of them also constructed not only in Massachusetts. Some of them finished construction of LNG project in Alaska and other places. So it's a global business right now, and Massachusetts company do take advantage of this experience in Massachusetts with the project. Matt Taylor, responsible for financing of energy projects. He's based in Philadelphia, but he's a Massachusetts native. I would like to start with the reason why we are proposing the facility at this time. The immediate need for the facility is to provide reliability and cost savings to gas utility customers across the Commonwealth. The Massachusetts Department of Public Utilities, after an evidentiary hearing that already finished, determined that the service from this facility will provide reliability and cost benefits to gas utility customers. Current foreign sources of LNG are expensive, and these foreign suppliers, including suppliers from Siberia and Yemen, have no duty to serve, making these sources less reliable and more uncertain. Additional capacity at our facility will, particularly as this source of LNG, and benefit gas utility customers in central and western Massachusetts. These facilities use our existing gas resources more effectively, and I will try to share the diagram and explain what I mean. To satisfy the requirements of gas utility customers, our team worked closely with the national grid, other utilities, and literally looked for appropriate sites across all of New England. The area around Charlton emerged as the best site for securing these benefits, and then we looked diligently for a suitable site. We analyzed and evaluated numerous sites in this region and others. All as described in the report we filed with our petition with the siting board. We found that attractive site, alternative of Route 20, which was filed as a preferred site. This site is zoned for industrial purposes. It's about 220-acre site. You can see part of this on this one. And this site provides extensive buffer space to all neighbors. It's located nearby the existing Tennessee gas pipeline that already runs underground of Charlton and has good access to the highways for truck delivery. We can construct and operate the facility with very limited environmental impacts. Later in our development process, some stakeholders asked us to consider whether the facility is sited near existing industrial sites, power generation stations, already developed industrial sites. Most of electricity in New England is generated by natural gas, and during cold periods, there is no space in the existing pipelines. So effectively on the coldest day, you might recall the first week of January, last week of December. In this case, everybody is leaning on one gas pipeline. So gas utilities trying to take as much gas as possible to meet the needs of households, to supply gas to run the furnaces. At the same time, power generators are looking for a gas supply on the same pipeline. The ability to use LNG in lieu of oil or coal will substantially reduce emissions, lower cost, and enhance reliability for the electricity market, and could enhance system resiliency in the central Massachusetts area. This was the basis for the site we have identified near the existing Millennium Power Station in Sharp. Over the longer term, the facility also may provide additional environmental benefits by reducing emissions in the transportation sector. While many hope to see great expansion of electric vehicles, LNG is increasingly becoming the fuel of choice across the world. Looking in Europe, they actively deploy LNG as fuel for vessels, fuel for cars, fuel for trucks, same as Canada, same as Asia, same frankly as California. Thus, over the time this facility might become integral to rail transportation. Speaking about Florida, the facility that John helped to build in Florida supplies LNG for Florida East Coast Railroad. 100% of locomotives now on this railroad are running on both LNG and oil. It's about 75 to 80% firing of LNG as fuel, and about 15, 20, 25% diesel. By displacing heavy diesel fuels and more substantial emissions coming from them, LNG could play a very important role in meeting the Commonwealth environmental goals. Let me give you a little bit an overview of LNG. You probably all seen in newspapers, lot of articles, lot of TV statements about big LNG tankers that are sailing from the Gulf Coast to places like Asia, to places like Korea. This is not such type of a project. So frankly, for us, it's a little bit strange that as a country we send clean fuel overseas, because in places like Japan, Korea, Asia, this US-made LNG displaces oil. While at home, we continue to run on oil. That's a strange arbitrage that we are making when we have a great opportunity to repower our own economy, to run on clean fuel by reducing emissions, improving maintenance of our facilities, and making it much cheaper. Just as a comparison, gas comparing to oil, the heating unit is about 4 times less expensive. That's why it's been highly adopted as one of the most efficient fuel sources. The Charlton project will take the gas that is already in the interstate pipeline that passes through town, liquefy it, store it, and send it to state utilities to use during the coldest time of the year. This is a little complicated, but I'll try to do my best and try to explain. So on the bottom side, you can see 365 days. So this is a full year-round time. The horizontal line is showing the volume of gas that is in the pipeline. So most of utilities utilize gas during winter peak all the way to the limit. So this is the limit of pipeline capacity. And on a cold day, as we saw during January, December time, all of this pipeline capacity is taken by utilities. What's happening when the weather is not as cold, like today, you have additional pipeline capacity that is not being utilized. So what will be happening during this time? Utilities will now utilize this pipeline capacity to produce LNG. Pipeline is already in place, gas is already flowing, ratepayers already paid for capacity in this pipeline. So the logic of this exercise not to waste this free room in the pipeline and try to take advantage and to create a useful product. How useful is the product and how good is this energy storage? You can see when you liquefy gas, and just one more time, in the middle you can see compressed natural gas. So we are not compressing natural gas. It's the same atmospheric pressure. So when we liquefy natural gas to a liquid stage, it shrinks by a factor of 600 times. So it's becoming the most efficient energy storage that ever exists. So Elon Musk is still looking for more efficient storage. You can actually now find it in Charlton. You don't need to go to Elon Musk for this exercise because it's actually higher energy density, what he has in Tesla. And this is actually higher about his energy storage, a few times more expensive than this energy storage. Plus, in his case, then you have to figure out how to dispose these batteries. Few states start to prohibit these batteries. So then at some point when the battery degrades, you have to figure out how to dispose it. In this case, you don't need to worry about this stuff. So that's an economic logic. That's why we believe that it would be an attractive project. That's what we're trying to execute. And that's somewhat summarize the value proposition, the business proposition. So when the time is cold, utilities, not in Charlton, in Boston, Springfield, any other places, they vaporize this gas. So effectively they move from liquid form back, increasing the volume, providing enough room for the service during the peak time. So that is schematic of this project. This facility is actually the engineering, reliability, and environmental answer to meet the Commonwealth energy needs, given the recent decisions to reduce amount of pipeline that's being built. And what's the point to build the pipeline if we can utilize capacity on an existing pipeline better? The technology, as I mentioned, is not new. It has served well communities across the United States, and Massachusetts has a great track record of using LNG and has been relying on LNG for decades. On a cold day, just to put it in a context, up to 40% of natural gas in places like Springfield or Boston comes from LNG. On this map, you can see we do put Carlton on this map, so you can see the other LNG facilities. Overall in the United States, it's about 100 of LNG facilities. It's about 18 in Massachusetts. And probably from this side, it's visible logic why liquefaction is attractive to be done, to be achieved here. It's an equal distance, approximately, getting to Boston, getting to Springfield. These signs are LNG storage facility. So this is a seasonal big storage facility where LNG being placed and vaporized during the cold time of the year. With growing production of the US gas, I think it's becoming less and less practical to be dependent upon gas that's coming from overseas. You remember this front page of a Boston newspaper when a lot of facilities, industries had to switch to oil and to run on oil. And you remember famous story also well covered in the newspapers when the vessel with LNG to come to rescue Boston came from more than 5,000 miles away. Just last month, National Grid secured its permit to build a similar natural gas liquefaction facility in Providence. These facilities will reduce substantially the need for imported natural gas. As LNG is much cleaner than oil, AJ, maybe a few more slides, you can show the difference. One more. Yep. So this top line is emissions that come in, and you saw the front page. This is just numbers behind this front page. So this showing reduction in emission when you switch from running on oil to running on natural gas. There are two major pollutants that we are trying to mitigate. Some of them also not new. A group of them was determined by Clean Air Act in 1970. So as a state, we continue to address these pollutants. It's nitrogen oxides, NOx, what we call, sulfur oxides, SOx, particles. So all the stuff which is associated with asthma and other stuff and other diseases. So our job is to reduce the level of these emissions. And more new items like carbon dioxide, which is also important because it contributes to a climate effect. So it allows to reduce by at least 30%, at least 1/3, pollutions coming from LNG versus oil. So it's a serious game changer. So it's a serious mover. It's an important one. AJ, if you advance one more slide, please. So how well do we learn how to handle LNG? So LNG is fairly prevalent source right now. School buses run on LNG, so it's not as scary as it sounds. Ferries, vessels actively switching for LNG, because before limitation on NOx and SOx pollution, we're only on onshore of the United States. Right now, they're also in an offshore of the United States, 300 miles. So that's why vessels switch into LNG, trucks running on LNG, railroad. This is not a Florida East Coast. This one is BNSF, which is also running on LNG. So this cleans up in a few places, like Los Angeles port, for example. The only one viable way to move the needle to reduce the smoke over Los Angeles was switching to natural gas. So this is actual, this is happening, this is across the world. Let me describe the facility, which employs safe, time-tested, state-of-the-art technology. As we discussed, gas will be coming off the interstate pipeline, really like an interstate highway, only not for trucks, but for natural gas. It's a very tight, federally regulated system with essentially no leaks. Equipment at plant is really simple and largely consists of two major parts. One is refrigeration. So refrigeration is not really way different technologies than what you have at home for your own refrigeration needs. Liquefaction cycle is relatively clean, relatively safe. That's why people are not afraid to put it in their homes, even from emissions point of view. So it runs at home safely. This one is obviously bigger scale. We'll show you full scale plant just to get a sense of this. But the technology is the same. What we use nitrogen, so which is safer than any in-home refrigeration elements. And this is the big part that drops the temperature of natural gas from ambient temperature of natural gas to minus 260 degrees. And then effectively you have a system of, this is a tank, LNG tank, which looks like a thermos, and it plays a role of the thermos. Because it's no pressure. If you have something cold, you put it in the thermos and you close it up. So in this way, it could sit on site, or in this way, it could be trucked in a specialized car, delivered by a customer, and being trucked to a seasonal location of LNG storage. So it is very familiar, similar technology. It's not too many complexity about this. Obviously at industrial scale, it does look bigger, it does look more impressive. It's safe. Massachusetts has operated LNG facilities for generations, which has been done with a stellar safety track record. This facility will be operated in the same responsible way and built in accordance with strict federal and state guidelines. LNG is simply the liquid of natural gas that, as we discussed, being used in a lot of other applications, some of them moving. This is a stationary facility. So we feel that with all the engineering, design, construction support of similar facilities, technology proven, well identified, we do feel that having local source, local supply is appropriate. We have this natural gas, it runs under Charlton. Let's take advantage of this gas that already passes Charlton. It's clean, it's reliable, it makes the network more reliable, and we hope that it will contribute positive economic impact to Charlton. In addition to helping local employers to remain competitive, and being competitive in Charlton is important because a lot of industries are dependent upon cost of energy and reliable energy. That's what we're planning to add as our contribution in this case. Similar projects contributing around 250 construction jobs. The economic activity from the project will create a need for 125 non-direct jobs, comparing it to similar projects, as well as 300 jobs, non-direct, involved in construction. It will generate additional tax revenues for Charlton, state, local communities, helping fund important public services. Thank you for your attention, courtesy, We look forward to your comments, suggestions, and look forward to doing it as a joint project with the local community, with the best of expertise that we have in our team, and with your help. Thank you.
Thank you. That completes the NEC presentation.
I want to thank the company for their presentation and move right into the public comment and question portion of tonight's hearing. I will first call on any federal, state, or local officials who may be present, followed by members of the public in the order that they have signed the speaker sign-up sheet in the back. All right, we are a little bit confused as to whether or how many of local political or members may be here tonight. So let me ask first, though, are there any federal officials here this evening who would wish to comment or ask questions about the project? Seeing none, I would ask, are there any state officials present here tonight who would like to comment or ask questions about the project? Finally, I would like to ask if there are any local officials here this evening who would like to either identify themselves or offer comments or questions regarding the project. Yes.
Hi, I'm Robin Craver, the town administrator here in Charlton. We have three of the members of the Board of Selectmen here, John McGrath, Karen Speedwack, and Joe Safarovich was also here.
Here.
Yep, over here. We don't have any prepared comments. I appreciate you coming. I appreciate the information you've given the residents on how to get comments to you even after. So for those people who are at home or weren't able to make it or wasn't able to hear everything, Drew, when will we have this up?
By Thursday.
By Thursday. So by Thursday we will have this on our YouTube site. So if you go to the website, you can view it. If you also want to send comments to the Board of Selectmen, you can send them to our office and we'll make sure they get them, and I'll pass them forward. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Craver. Did any of, yes, would you like to speak?
Sure, I'll just make a quick comment. Just throughout all this, I know the number one concern people have is...
Wait, why don't you come up here to the podium if you wouldn't mind, and as a reminder, when people speak, try to speak as loudly as possible, and also state and spell your name for the court reporter.
Oh boy.
Good
luck.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Joseph Safarovich, that's S-Z-A-F-A-R-O-W-I-C-Z. I'm on the Charlton Board of Selectmen. I know that the number one concern people have is safety. I don't have anything prepared for tonight, but that is what our number one concern is too, is making sure the transportation of the gas, the construction of the facility, and transportation of the gas out of the facility is done in a safe way, that our fire station is able to partner up with the operators, with the owners of this facility, and to make everything absolutely safe, and in the unlikely event of any emergencies, be able to mitigate it as much as possible. So that's my commitment, and I'm sure the rest of the board feels the same way. Going forward with this project is safety, safety, safety. That's really it. Thank you.
One of the other points that was made was that they would be looking for 2 zoning board variances or exemptions. Considering all the issues the town has had lately with zoning, how will that impact, or will it set precedent for other things that are concerned with zoning in town?
So with zoning, I would leave that to the planning board and the zoning board of appeals. That's their domain. We obviously will be there to help offer resources and to take questions and to help organize as much as we can.
If I could offer a comment, it's fairly common for energy facilities, a particular kind of facility that is subject to the jurisdiction of the siting board and the Department of Public Utilities to seek exemptions, because those zoning bylaws typically don't contemplate electric transmission lines and other structures. So you will find that it's pretty unlikely that any precedent that we set here will affect any other use or structure or development in the community.
Did- Hi, would you like to come forward to the podium? Getting signals from all different parts of the room here.
Hi, I'm Jean Boubon. I'm the town planner in Sturbridge, B-U-B-O-N. And I'm here with Charlie Blanchard. He's the chair of the planning board in Sturbridge, and Mike Supernat on the board of selectmen of Sturbridge. And I guess, I'll let other boards speak for themselves, but from the planning department, I appreciate the opportunity that you've had somebody come in, NEC had somebody come in to meet with us. But I think that our biggest question is one of safety, of mutual aid. I understand from Ms. Jackson that you will be providing training for Charlton EMTs and fire rescue, but I would assume that in a large disaster, there would be the need for mutual aid. So I would like to go on record of saying that we would appreciate if this goes forward, that you consider the towns in the region would need to know how to respond to this. And I did, I guess just a comment, I expected a little more of a presentation about the site itself. And I don't know if there's, I know that you have the plans online, but I didn't know, given the DPU process that I'm not familiar with, I didn't know what permitting process on a local level this needs to go through. So those are my questions. Thank you.
Would the company like to respond to the question, and if so, why don't you please come up to the podium? I think the main question was what other permitting processes other than the siting board and the DPU that the project will need to go through.
Certainly. One of the things that's a bit unusual about the siting board historically is that you often propose a preferred site and an alternative site, or a preferred route for an electric transmission line and an alternative route. NEC developed a preferred site off of Route 20, but also looked at a second site. So the notice that you saw indicates that the company is still looking at two sites, doing a lot of analysis and comparison of the opportunities and benefits of each respective site. There are other permits, and certainly the environmental experts at Epsilon can correct me when I misstate something, which I'm sure that I will. But there's there's first off a very comprehensive process at the siting board that looks at the plans and impacts on environmental issues, both during construction and operation, and requires plant operators to develop plans to mitigate those impacts. So this is a very rigorous environmental review. Then there's a process under the Massachusetts Environmental Protection Act where this plan will be subject to review and comment by a whole host of environmental agencies that will comment on the plan, the proposal, and the construction. So there's two very comprehensive state reviews. There will be a few other reviews, but quite honestly, there weren't a lot of reviews required because of the limited factors at the state. So there'll be a curb cut to create a new driveway. There are some wetland impacts on the site, but the company has been able to really mitigate those, and with where it configures the site, there's very limited impacts. So other than, what else am I missing, AJ? Air permit. There is some emissions associated with some of the equipment. It's a relatively low minor source, it's called, but that is another review that will go through the State Department of Environmental Protection. So there are 3 or 4 very comprehensive state reviews. There is the local review for the Conservation Commission, and as I noted, zoning doesn't really fit neatly with energy facilities, so we propose to get an exemption from the application of bylaws for these facilities. But we also propose is to go in and sort of work with the functional equivalent of a site plan review with the zoning officials here in Charlton. If there's reasonable requests or requirements that folks would want to add in that sort of informal process, as a way to be a good neighbor, good citizen, we've agreed to go through that, and that sort of keeps us out of the zoning bylaws 4 corners, which don't work neatly for energy facilities, but gives the folks in the community of Charlton an opportunity to weigh in with those sorts of reasonable conditions that you would often find in a zoning type process in town for another facility. So that's the plan. There's 2 sites. We're still looking at them, and as Mr. Brevnow said, the comments and concerns that we hear tonight and that we learn about later in the proceeding will ultimately decide which is preferred and hopefully which one is approved by the siting board and other agencies.
But we do want to thank it is appropriate suggestion that you made to include not only Charlton, but to include response teams from a triangle area. It is, you're exactly right, we're in touch with Charlton Fire Chief, getting a lot of good advice, help from him, and this is appropriate proposal and we're taking a note.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to go down, as I said, we'll go down the speaker sign-up sheet, and people will be welcome to comment or ask questions, starting with the first person on the list, Kathleen Brill.
No comments.
Okay. Ms. Brill has no comments. Joseph Lewandowski.
You did very well.
How do you want it set up? Hold on a second. How do you want it set up?
Oh, thank you,
Or
David.
aim towards them? Just tell me how you want it.
Why don't we have
Whatever.
them speaking to the audience?
You want it to the audience, okay, fine. That way then, you're okay?
Okay, my name is Joe Lewandowski,
Spell please.
Lawendowski. I live on Harrington Road in Charlton. When I first read about this, I sent the questions to Ms. Sidor, and they were quite responsive to what I asked. And some of my quick questions, again, safety, like Zaparovitz said, you know, basically how safe is stored LNG, and then what do you need to prevent an explosion, you know, stuff like that. How safe is the conversion process? I looked online, sort of confused, but you know, it's still going to take some time. Emissions are always an issue. Then the question is, will this company be providing special equipment and training for the fire department in the town of Charlton, and all the equipment needed in those emergencies? I think that's extremely critical. And then we get to the real good ones. How many tanker trucks per day? How big are these trucks? And is there a seasonal time frame for transport? That is, sometimes the load is heavier or lighter when delivering natural gas. I find that overwhelming, that thought alone, because you're working on 2 heavily used roads, Route 20 and Route 169, one being much smaller than the other. So for me, that's a major, major concern. My opinion is access to and from 169 is extremely limited. It's a small side road up to the power plant, and traffic on 169 is bad enough. And who would be paying for all this changes necessary for all of this? And then Route 20 is its own nightmare scenario. Does this mean that there's going to be more traffic lights on Route 20? Because I can't see trucks going in and out from that location on Route 20 without traffic lights because of the potential danger. Of course, I don't know how much potential danger there is in a tanker truck if it gets hit. And then the last one is, was addressed briefly, is the tax benefit to the town for the installation of this site. And, oh, I just looked at a couple more I just wrote down. How close is that facility on Route 20 going to be to Juniper Hill, the apartments in Juniper Hill? Looking at it on the map, it looks fairly close. So I'm not sure how close it really is and what danger is to that area. And what is the life of a LNG plant? Which is important for people to understand. 10 years, 20 years. That's it for me.
Nice job.
Thank you, Mr.
Lewandowski.
I'm not going to ask each time whether the company would like to respond to questions aired by the speakers here tonight, but if the company hears a specific question or a couple of questions that it wishes to respond to right now, I will leave that to you to do.
Thank you. And we will do, and we'll try to leave as much time for your comments and your questions, because it's mostly your night today, not our night. And some of the questions were really good, and we hope to maintain the dialogue, and we like the hearing process when it's more of a dialogue. Also, too, there are a few good questions. Questions regarding traffic is important questions. So contractually, what the project is planning to do, it is contracted for 15-year term, 1-5. That's one. Some elements of this facility can operate much longer. We do believe in future of these facilities. Some of facilities in Boston has been around for 50 years. So, for example, if you look in Springfield facility, liquefaction in Springfield facility is around 50 years old. And Ludlow LNG storage facility is probably also around 50 years old. So they have different life cycle. Usually liquefaction facility has a shorter life cycle, storage facility a longer life cycle. But with appropriate maintenance, when you maintain your compressors, rotating equipment, life cycle could be longer. The famous barge, LNG barge, the first LNG barge we actually built in Boston. So this barge retired 50 years ago in Indonesia. So things happening, but that gives you a sense. But the contractual offtake for our anchor customer is 15 years, and contractually for this particular customer for that we provide is about 12 trucks a day for this particular customer. So it is important. That's why we did a traffic study. Traffic study is part of our filing. 12 trucks a day. And look, every car on the road is a car on the road. Not to downplay, but from a regulation point of view, it's not an overwhelming amount of trucks. To answer on 169, we also hope that with finishing of the work of the landfill facility, some of the trucks will be coming, will be less in use. So, in general, another good question: how many days of the year we are planning to liquefy? Just from a planning point of view, usually you liquefy on the days, for example, like today, when it's not too cold. When it's getting too cold, you don't really liquefy. So usually you don't liquefy for 1 month and a half, 2 months. So it's a relatively regular schedule for these trucks. Trucking services is not provided by us. We are not involved. It's a well-run company, union company. It's actually called Transgas. So they deliver LNG for Massachusetts utilities. They have been also doing it for generations with a stellar track record. You've seen a lot of LNG trucks. You just can't tell the difference between LNG, LPG, propane tank, or diesel tank. They use very much the same. So that's why you cannot tell the difference, but you can see them on Mass Pike. They continue to deliver LNG to all of these facilities that we show. So it is very known, very regulated process that we have to follow and the service we're providing. Only one correction, because the questions are really good. We don't really have a process of conversion. So this is not process when we take energy, for example, as natural gas and produce electric energy. So we don't convert. We start with natural gas and we finish with natural gas. It's same as moleculars of natural gas, only in a very cold stage. So that is why it's not really combustible, that's why it's not really explosive, that's why it's not under pressure. So that is why kind of we take it effectively, think about this, it's like ice cubes. So you take the same substance, you cool it down enough so it shrinks enough from one stage of gas to a liquid stage, and you utilize it. And we hope to continue to stay in dialogue, and we found your questions very helpful.
Thank you.
I just, no, I understand the process thing, but is the conversion process from gas to liquid a dangerous process? Or is it a stable process? Because it's, when you read about it, it's a refrigerant type system that's used to cool it down. Does that cause any type of problem?
Right. It is a stable process. It's just going through different, slowly, cools down, going through different stages of refrigeration. Okay. So this is no different from any other refrigeration process that you can have. There is no step-up function. There is no big change. There is no kind of drama in this process. It's a slow cooling process.
No, I'm not sure how many people read the article that was in the Worcester Sunday Telegram on the 4th of November about this place. It was very helpful when I read this article to find out more information about it. You know, other than that, whoever was responsible for this, great job, in my opinion.
Thank you. I cannot read the last name, but the first name is Cher.
Could it be Chet?
It could be Chet.
I am Chet Godfrey, Godfrey. I live on 10 Schoolhouse Road. It's a very quiet, dark neighborhood at night. We've lived there for like 16 years now. And my house is about, my yard is about a quarter mile from the facility, from what I can tell if the map, the scale was bad on the map when it was reduced. Anyway, I have 3 questions. First, lighting. Now, in the filing, which was in the library, which gave you more information than the thing in the paper, it says you're going to be operating 3 shifts, which is around the clock. And you're talking, so you're going to have lighting. If you work at night, you have to have light for your employees. So how much light is it? I mean, are we talking NFL Stadium we're going to see from 5 miles away? Or what? I don't know. My second question is, also in that, 3 shifts. You mentioned in the thing, it said something, it wasn't very specific, but it said like 64 trucks a day, 20 trucks an hour. 20 trucks an hour translates into a truck moving every 3 minutes. You can't even get out of the facility that fast, which to me means there would be constant movement of trucks. We're looking at a major facility for moving equipment. So we need to have that answer. That's going to be a lot of noise, which would have to be mitigated somehow. And with these concerns, I'm concerned with market value of my house. Is there going to be something to cover us if a potential loss of market value? Those are my concerns.
Thank you, Mr. Godfrey. Does the company wish to respond at this time to
Sure.
Mr. Godfrey's questions?
Sure. One, I do want to clarify regarding trucks, so I'm not sure that information kind of that you referenced was clear enough. So our obligation is to supply 12 trucks, even with any volumes of production. We are not planning to have the traffic study, so we can show you contractual obligations, we can show you maximum amount of trucks that we consider, maximum amount of trucks if there is a peak day, something extraordinary happening, we believe it will be 25 trucks. So it's 1 truck an hour. So we are not really looking for 1 truck a minute or more. This is not feasible with the scale of facilities that we are doing. It's not feasible with the scale of production, and we will clarify it one more time relative to trucking. And base case scenario, as I mentioned, 12, 14 trucks a day. High case scenario, 25 trucks a day. So it shouldn't be. Relative to lighting, there are certain federal standards, state standards, how we do need to provide lighting related to this facility. We will follow up and provide this information too. Regarding the property value, we actually feel that having in Charlton more affordable, more reliable energy could have positive effect on industries, on attraction of Charlton. Frankly, when you run your industrial facilities, we run our industrial facilities on oil, on the propane, this actually making the place less attractive to live. If you run your facilities, if you run our facilities on a clean fuel, it does make more attractive. But same, we are going through 2 different sites, 2 different approaches to this. We're taking these comments very seriously, and we'll continue to work and we'll continue to provide information in newspapers, on a local circuit TV, through Energy Facility Siting Board, and through direct conversations.
Thank you. I'd just like to note for the record that even though I couldn't pronounce his name, Mr. Godfrey has already submitted written comments to the siting board regarding this project. And just for general reference, when we get written comments, they go into the record of the proceeding. If you were to go online to our website, you will be able to get into the docket for the case and see every single document that has either been submitted by a party or issued by the siting board. So your comments are always welcome. They will be read by all members of the siting board staff, and they will be included in the record for this proceeding. Etel Hotning.
I will pronounce it for you.
Thank you.
Sure. It is Etel Hajijaj, that's spelled H-A-X-H-I-A-J.
Quote H.
H-A-X-H-I-A-J. So my name is Etel, I'm a mom. I'm also an organizer with Mothers Up Front. I come from Worcester, your neighboring town. So I'm not a resident, and I have a stake still. I have a stake because I have 2 little boys over there, and for all of the parents in the audience, you have a stake too. This is simply a terrifying project. I would like to read something for you. Nearly 2 years ago, an explosion and a massive gas leak at a liquid natural gas facility in Plymouth, Washington, 30 miles south of Tree Cities, injured 5 workers and forced hundreds of people to evacuate their homes. To this day, state and federal oversight agencies have not published the findings of their investigations into the accident, and the facts about what happened are almost completely unknown to the public. Please indulge me, I'd like to cite another statistic. An explosive new report from U.S. Department of Energy makes it clear that liquefied natural gas is likely a climate destroying misallocation of resources. In fact, in 2009, a EU report also stated that the energy-intensive liquefaction process and transportation further increases NLG emissions. I wouldn't want this plant near your home. Would you have this plant near your home, endangering the safety of citizens? Those trucks that you cite going up and down the highway, British Columbia, huge explosion, Plymouth, huge explosion, Providence, you cited that they received a permit. Yes, they did from the federal government, but there was huge opposition from the residents because they recognize that natural gas, and I have to disagree with you, it's not clean gas, it's fracked fossil fuel gas. It does not bring us closer to meeting our climate goals for Massachusetts, and that is, as a mom, that is what I'm fighting for. The Intergovernmental Panel Climate Change report that just came out gave us about 12 years to make sure that we reduce our methane emissions. Natural gas does not do that. And so I'm hoping residents of Charlton will not approve this clarifying project, and thank you.
Thank you. Michael Suprenant.
My name is Michael Suprenant, spelled S-U-P-R-E-N-A-N-T. As our town planner, Jean Boubon, pointed out, I'm a member of the Sturbridge Board of Selectmen for full disclosure, but I am not here by any means representing the Sturbridge Board of Selectmen or the town of Sturbridge in any way. I'm an engaged citizen, and that's, my comments will be that. I also am, I attend monthly meetings of the Massachusetts Municipal Association Policy Committee on Public Works, Transportation, and Public Utilities. I'm a civil engineer by training. The first thing that struck me about this siting was that my training, I've done a lot of distribution analysis and transport analysis for pipelines. And usually you tend to put storage facilities near the demand to minimize the cost. And there's really no demand in the southwest central Massachusetts sub-region. It's not connected to any distribution system at all. The only way to, other than putting the stored gas back into the Tennessee transmission system, would be to truck LNG on site. And so, which trucking is not the most cost-effective way to distribute and transport natural gas. It's very expensive compared to pipelines. So so the siting itself, when I went to my local library and started reading the volume that's about this thick, I just stumbled over the original premise on engineering design and cost-effective storage. You usually put it where the demand is, or in the, as close as you can to where your demand is, so that your piping system sizing is minimized. The second thing that struck me was the safety of getting on and off of Route 20. The report says that there's 64 trips per day. I don't know how many of those are tankers bringing in nitrogen or tankers hauling out LNG, but it does say 64 trips per day, which is an ADT of 128, average daily traffic volume that would generate the facility, which is not a lot of traffic, but there's real problems with acceleration and deceleration and sight distances at the entrance roadway or driveway, if you want to call it. And there's not enough traffic there to warrant a fully actuated traffic system, as the report points out. But I would suggest that this would really require some acceleration and deceleration lanes on Route 20. The report says, well, there'll be some kind of, west of the site, they'll have to clear some wetlands to make the visibility around 600 feet, which at the posted speed limit would require around 600 feet of sight distance. That, and the report doesn't actually contemplate what traffic design would, you'd have to go out there and measure the actual speed out there and come up with what the actual speed of the vehicles are. They use, I guess, 85th percentile speed as the design speed. Well, that wasn't done, so maybe that sight distance might be a little bit longer than 600 feet. But I would suggest that there be acceleration and deceleration lanes if it is cited here. At a minimum, a flashing yellow beacon over the driveway, and or maybe a flashing red beacon facing the driveway, and even better, have an actuation where there would be strobes whenever there's a vehicle entering, leaving, especially an LNG truck. So that would provide additional safety at that location, something like that. The other thing that I kind of stumbled on, I was thinking about environmental issues. Oh, I forgot to mention that Route 20 is, I'm on the Transportation Planning Committee in Central Mass, and that is a major evacuation route, so people should really look at hazard mitigation there, because it is it's a U.S. primary route, and it's what they call an evacuation route. So, and environmental things, I was looking at, they avoided wetlands as much as possible, but there are other environmental issues like the lighting, and that's an environmental justice issue that Massachusetts, well, when DOT grants the driveway permit issue, they have to look at that, that sort of issue, the lighting, and there's even a bit of a social justice thing on Juniper Lane and other surrounding residential areas, because yes, it's zoned industrial now, but in close proximity to the facility, there is some residential areas. Even I think the daycare center's going in there now and stuff. So those type of environmental justice type of issues should be looked at and addressed in the REPA review. That's all my comments. Thank you.
Charles Houghton.
My name is Charles Houghton, H-O-U-G-H-T-O-N. I live up in Upham Farms condominiums up there behind what used to be the health club. There's about 30 families up there that have units, and we're 3,000 feet away from the location out here. And so we have our safety concerns about that, in terms of being so close. One of our problems is water up there. We finally, after a long, many-year battle, got town water up there, but it's not enough to support fire hydrants. So we basically have no water backup if we have a fire up there. And living in proximity to something like this, and after what this young lady said about a plant exploding someplace, who knows? But maybe the company could help us do something about water for safety purposes. The other issue, and it's been repeated a number of times, but just the traffic on Route 20. That road where they plan to come in, to me, it looks like you come down the hill from 49, around a fairly sharp corner, and there's that road. And cars come down there at 50, 60 miles an hour, despite the speed limit. And they come around that corner, and there's one of these trucks pulling out. Good luck, folks. So that's my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Houghton. Joe Holenda.
Joe Holeva, Holewa, 94 Blood Road, Charlton. And NEC, welcome to Charlton. So I don't, I'm not either pro or con about this project. I just really would like to get some information. I'm going to throw some facts out there just so everyone knows how much energy you're really storing out there. They're storing 1 million gallons of LPG fuel. That's the equivalent of 84,000 BTUs per gallon. You've got 1 million gallons on site. It's about 21 kilotons of TNT, or 1.5 Hiroshima bombs without the radiation. It's significant, okay? So the safety really has to be discussed and vetted thoroughly, because we're sitting on some potential big problems there. Another issue that came up, 1944 in Ohio and Cleveland, there was a storage tank that leaked. It actually exploded. What the gentleman didn't say is when LNG leaks, it turns into a gas. Hopefully that gas dissipates into the air, which many times it does. But if the wind takes that gas and pushes it, like it did in Cleveland, it propagated into the sewer system. That sewer system was connected to houses, and it wiped out a 1 square mile block, area. 200 people were killed, 680 families were homeless. Very, very serious event. Now, they will tell you that those tanks were improperly designed, and they probably were. They didn't have enough nickel in them. I'm sure there have been some advances since then, but accidents can and do happen. Lightning strikes. We haven't said the big terrorist word here, but I'm sure these aren't hardened facilities. If something comes up, I'd like to know what your plan is, okay? Big issues. The trucking, I'm not sure how many gallons of LNG are carried on these trucks. I imagine it's probably around 10,000. If a truck was ever engulfed and took off with a big explosion, that impact would be felt significantly. In Charlton, as you know, we have a relatively small fire department and police department. If we ever had a big disaster up there, they would be quickly overwhelmed. I'd like to know what the evacuation plan would be, how you would notify these people, how you would get them out, how you would mitigate it. So there's a lot of questions on the table. And like I said, I am not pro, I'm not con, but I just haven't heard enough evidence to really make this thing a viable project in Charlton at this point. I know the site review here, or the site board here, talked about interveners and limited participants. I'd like to know what is the requirement as far as how many meetings you'd have to go to be a participant in that, because some people work full-time, I work full-time. I don't know if I'd be able to participate on that or not based on what the requirement is to get involved. So I'd like to know more about that. So there are a lot of concerns. I know nitrogen's being brought on site, relatively safe to see nitrogen, but if nitrogen mixes with other material like air, sometimes it's not as safe as we'd like to talk here. So be very cautious about this. Tax revenue, nice, right? Safety, throw that tax revenue out the window with one serious event. So make sure you really stay involved with this. I know I'm going to make sure that as it goes on, we give our comments and we've let our voice heard through our state rep. And so and through our governor's office, we want to make sure that our safety concerns are addressed. Another reason why they put this in Charlton, if you think about it, completely right. They like to, you know, really probably the most economical way to do this is close to the demand, so you wouldn't have to truck it. But they don't want these in urban centers, you know. You could very easily locate this probably in Boston, but Boston would really push back on that because it's so densely populated. If it was so safe, then they wouldn't have an issue with it, would they? So be careful, that's all I got to say. I think these guys are legitimate. I can tell they seem to be honest talking about it, but we as a population need to ask the right questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Steve Denon?
Steve Denman, D-E-N-M-A-N, D-E-N-M-A-N, Oak Ridge Drive, Charlton. I live very close to the pumping station over on Carbon Hill Road. My question is this pumping station going to be used to pump the gas, the natural gas, into this LNG plant? So you, all right, that was my question. The other concern I had was, at the time, back in the 80s, when they put in those pipelines up and back, it was reported that that was the largest storage of natural gas in the Northeast. So, all right, that was my question.
And I do want to thank and to respond to your questions. And some examples, it is actually an appropriate example. So the last accident in the United States related to LNG was in Cleveland in 1944. The accident in 1944 is actually a relevant example, and your statement that the standards have been revised a few times to make it much more stricter is appropriate standard, appropriate statement. So it is fair one. In other cases, none of LNG, including Canadian case, state of Washington, they're not related to LNG. So they were related to other gas supply issues, but not to LNG projects. Related to economic justice, in every major city in Boston, you have an LNG facility. In Boston, in Springfield, you pick any Providence, not exactly Massachusetts, but close enough, you have an LNG facility. Why? And the previous discussion and the previous comments from Sturbridge were also appropriate and good, thoughtful comments, and we're thinking about the same issues related to this. Our facility is more focused on liquefaction. So comparing the amount of LNG that, for example, you have in Springfield or what you have in Boston, facility in Charlton will have probably 2, 3, 4% of volume that you have in major cities. Relative to oil facilities, you have in Charlton area probably 10 times higher energy density of existing, we'll verify on record how much, but magnitude of tens of times more oil with much higher explosive capacity than LNG. So, but questions is appropriate, safety requirement are appropriate. Logic of liquefying in Charlton because it's a high pressure pipeline. So it is an appropriate place to liquefy because you have high pressure gas coming in. Usually in major cities you have much bigger storages but much smaller liquefaction because you have a distribution network of gas. So when gas doesn't have as high pressure when it comes into the cities. So that's a logic. It was appropriate comment that storage is more appropriately located to a consumption demand center. That's why major storages are located inside the cities. Also on the record, I'm not a mother but a father of 2 boys, and we do have LNG storage facility right near our office in proximity in Philadelphia. But it is appropriate questions. So safety is priority #1 for us. And you do have our commitment that we'll stay on top of safety issues. One advantage of LNG, also it is highly regulated. For example, to build a 5 million gallon oil tank, we don't have to have such rigorous proceeding in front of EFSB. As long as we don't reach 5 million gallons of oil tank. Oil will have 1.4 ton what energy density versus LNG?
About 1.4.
1.4 times. So multiply by 1.4 point to get the equivalent, it's about 7 times kind of equivalent of what we are doing. When University of Massachusetts, which is another institution that does take care of children, decided to put 70,000 LNG storage facility to move to clean fuel, they had to go through a rigorous process even for 70,000. And frankly, this rigorous process does help everybody. So nobody wants to have repetition of 1944. And these higher standards to LNG proved that frankly, even across the world, in Europe, in Canada, in California, these facilities do have a stellar safety record. So it is to our advantage, and rigorous process and active dialogue like today is helpful to avoid these mistakes.
John Muzzy.
My name is John Muzzy, M-U-Z-Z-Y. I live on 10 Schoolhouse Road, right next to Chester. All right, my understanding of what you're talking about is I worked in your plants, all right? I know what they do. The containment of it is fairly safe. It's a liquid state. At a liquid state, it will burn. It won't explode. But when you change it from a gas to a liquid, it's very explosive. At these point in times, when they load the trucks, they actually purge the trucks. Now, just to get it on record, I'm east of the site, and the winds are prevailing from the west to the east. When they do this, they purge the trucks. They take all the gas that's in the truck and blow it into the atmosphere, which the guy was saying earlier would be fine if it just goes up straight. But if the winds are blowing, it takes it sideways, all right? And it will stick to the ground. I've seen it, all right? These facilities are fairly safe. It's the trucking that's the problem, all right, on your facilities, all right? The other thing is, what about our insurance? Is our insurance gonna go up because we live closer to the plant? Is that gonna cost us more money? All right? And there's other things too. McKinstry Brook, all right, which is a beautiful area. I've been hunting there for 30 years, all right? There's otters, there's beaver, there's deer, there's all kinds of wildlife. Now, if you do have an accident and you have to put chemicals or anything on these fires or to put them out, what would happen to McKinstry Brook and the wildlife management area down the line? Even headed to Southbridge, all right, which is a pretty major city. I know it's not Boston, but would these chemicals get in the water and would they travel? All right, we already have enough problems with chemicals in our water and smells from the dump and everything else. All right, this is my problem. Major is, will our insurance go up? Will our property value go down? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Muzzy. I have 3 more names here. The next name is David Barbale.
Hi, I'm David Barbale, B-A-R-B-A-L-E, 263 Carpenter Hill Road, Charlton. Thanks to my fellow town citizens here for enlightening us on some things that I didn't even know about. My original concern was about the traffic. As bad an area as Route 20 is for this project, I think Route 169 would be twice as bad. If it does end up going on Route 20, if it does come to town at all, and I don't think it should, I don't know why we'd want it for a few extra tax dollars, considering property values are gonna go down. And if it does end up going on Route 20, is there any way we could divert those trucks to take a left to go to the Mass Pike and stay off of Route 20? Instead of stopping at every red light, congesting the road. The other thing is, first it started at 12 trucks, now it's 24 max. Would you put it in the contract with the town? If it's over 24 per day in a 24-hour period, you pay a fine or whatever it may be? So that we have some assurance about that. Route 169 and Route 20, that area has been a mess lately as far as traffic goes. Traffic's backing up. I don't know how you could make that better, redo the whole thing. Again, who pays for that? State, you guys. I think the whole project, why Charlton would want this is beyond me. If I plead to our selectmen, if there's anything they can do to stop this or shoot this down, or the planning board, please do, because I don't want it, I can't see my family want it, I can't see any of our town's members wanting it, unless they're gonna benefit financially from it in some way. And I think that's it for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barbill.
Peter Leonard.
Peter Leonard, LEONARD, Upland Farms Condominium Trust. I just wanted to reiterate a few points that my fellow trustee, Mr. Hogan, mentioned about the area. Right now it's a swamp, it's wetland. I don't know how building an industrial liquefaction plant would improve my property value, living right up in that area. That said, if it's zoned industrial, it was intended at least to have some commercial use. Right now, along that area, there's no fire protection. The last fire hydrant stops at Juniper Hill. And from there, all the way to the Sturbridge border, there's a water main, but it doesn't support fire protection. So as part of this plan, I see that needs to be addressed. There has to be some type of way to deal with a major industrial accident. It's possible. The track record of at least the gas industry in Massachusetts, at least the recent, is a bit suspect. There's been some industrial accidents. That needs to be dealt with. Also the traffic, as many residents and people have attested to, it's a problem. There's been several accidents, fatal accidents on Route 20 involving commercial vehicles, large trucks, and passenger cars. So the safety issue needs to be dealt with. A pretty in-depth traffic study needs to happen, and something has to be done with the speeds and the kind of vehicle mix as part of this. This project really can't happen unless those two things are addressed. And that's what I have. That's all the comments.
Thank you, Mr. Leonard. Roger Lutier.
It's Cloutier, C-L-O-U-T-I-E-R. I live at 17 Coburn Road in Charlton. I've been a resident for between 50 and 55 years. In fact, I graduated, this was our cafeteria when I was a kid. I graduated from this building. I have a few questions. And one, the Department of Public Utilities has put a moratorium on non-emergency, non-compliant natural gas works in the National Grid Columbia Gas territories in the northeastern Mass. Are you guys going to be able to get by that moratorium? There's a freeze on it right now. So somebody asked me to ask you a question.
Sure.
Yeah, I'll give you a chance to answer, but I only have 3 or 4.
Fine to answer.
Yes.
We are not part of national grid, so this
No.
moratorium would not impact.
Okay, so you're not, but I thought it was
We are
on
not
all
affiliated
utilities.
with national grid.
Okay,
Yeah.
because of what happened on Northeast, but you're not part of that?
Correct.
So you're not, okay. And you gotta understand some of our hesitation in town. A couple of things have happened. We got solar farms going up everywhere. We got some marijuana facilities and some issues. So a lot of people have come to town, made a lot of promises for the people of the town. And some are better at keeping their promises than others. And I'll give you an example. On solar panels, I read that there's litigation going on in town, that one of the solar farms don't want to pay the taxes that they've been assessed, I guess. So there's this litigation going on. If the town loses, then all the other solar farms are going to want to get a reduction in their taxes. So taxes is going to be a concern. People holding their word as to what they say. Because, to be honest, everybody promises you the world, and then they backpedal as the project progresses. That's our experience on a history. So if some people sound a little annoyed, I think that's part of it. That's a good part of it. So I'm worried. How many people will be employed at this facility?
It is not extremely labor-intensive process. No. So it's like any refrigerator, you can do only so much. It's about 10 people.
About 10 people. So there's not a lot of jobs for the
Not
community.
all the jobs, correct.
or
It's more
anything.
secondary jobs, because this facility does bring elements of resilience, does allow to create microgrids. So this facility will facilitate secondary jobs, but primary jobs not much.
And I understand it will be pretty much shut down during certain times of the year?
It would not be totally shut down, but you're right, liquefaction process
Would be shut down?
would be correct.
There'd be good security around the premises, I hope?
Yes, it's
I mean,
multiple
that's-
fences. Just what did you say, how many miles of fences?
In the world we live in.
20,000 feet of fencing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know,
So
but-
there will be cameras, there will be fencing related.
But if somebody wanted to do harm, hopefully there's a security force on site to, cameras are great,
It is a
fences are great.
Right, it's a high security facility.
But if somebody wanted to hurt the country or the town, you would hope
And
that-
same maybe a little bit, not your question, but from a previous speaker, but taking advantage of this, the facility will have its own fire water tank and its own fire suppression systems. So you're correct, we are not leaning on any of town or neighboring fire water facilities.
And I'm gonna beat a horse to death. But when there's an accident on the Massachusetts Turnpike, Route 20 comes to a grinding halt. Anybody that lives in that area that has ever tried to go through Sturbridge into Charlton heading towards Worcester, or the other way, if you're going down 84, once the Mass Pike has an accident, which happens a lot, that road becomes just a parking lot. Yeah, thank you. That is the right. But basically, those are my.
No, it is appropriate comments, and look, when development happens in my neck of the woods, you have to be suspicious, and you do have to ask appropriate questions, and you have to go through a process to figure out, and you have to figure out how to balance, because in reality, by building this facility here, we will reduce number of LNG truck miles on Mass Pike. So right now, what's happening, even to get LNG, for example, from Everett to Berkshire, or LNG from Everett to Springfield, they have to travel more miles. So there is thousands, hundreds of thousands, frankly, millions of miles traveled of LNG on Mass Pike. As I'm saying, these cars have to differentiate. And LNG is safer than propane, LNG is safer than oil. And we also know that all of you had experiences with oil spills. Any energy does require strict protocols and safety measures. A little bit advantage to LNG, as we discussed before, it is a highly regulated area of expertise. So part of this is this process, part of this is the global standards, it's national standards, and frankly, Massachusetts has some extra standards, which are higher than federal standards. So we have to follow all these standards in reality too. So, and the standards in a lot of cases, and when people ask about what's in the study, in a lot of studies you have to use multiple. For example, in Massachusetts, impoundment area, so if LNG needs to go into secure whole surface
Containment.
containment, it has to be built to the size of 1.5 times of the size of the tank.
Each tank.
Each tank. So in this case, the view is, it's from physical point of view, it's impossible. It's not that we'll have 50% more LNG, but you have to have containment area that accounts for this LNG. It's not like we're planning to have 65 trucks, but when we're doing a traffic study, you need to use a multiple of 3 to be sure that you arrive to a number that the study will be conducted. So there are few normal engineering multiples that apply to be sure that safety standards and safety margins are bigger. And we are thinking about this, we continue to work on this. Tom likes to say engineering process lasts until the project is totally done in this case, and you're exactly right, safety is priority number 1.
Let you know, there's a lot of litigation in town between the marijuana, there's a lot of litigation. I think it's called Make It Rain as a company, I guess there's litigation on that, and there's quite a bit of litigation going on.
We frankly prefer dialogues like today, even if it's a skeptical dialogue versus litigation, but you're exactly right. That is why it's also
so much
judicial
going on.
proceedings that we are having today. It is a judicial proceeding.
Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez. Those are all of the names that I have on the speaker's sign-up sheet or that we have. Is there anyone else who might want to say a few words? Sure, come on up.
Hi, my name is Michael Rossetti, R-O-S-S-E-T-T-I.
Spell it again, please.
R-O-S-S-E-T-T-I. I live on Route 169 in Charlton. I had 2 questions. One, you answered that you're not gonna hook up to the pumping station on the Capitol Hill Road, which is near Snake Hill. Okay. Could I ask you where you intend on tying into the pipe? And if you intend on touching Route 169 at all, cutting across the road or anything else?
Sure.
Thank you.
At this point, we have no plans to touch Route 169 or to trench it or to do anything with Route 169.
Okay.
Tennessee gas pipeline relative to 169 is north from 169.
Yes.
So there is no need for us to go south. We have to go north. We will try to stay within existing right-of-way, and we will be going towards a Kinder TGP existing meter and regulation station.
Oh, okay, okay. And you answered my questions. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
My name is Phil Krukowski, K-R-U-K-O-W-S-K-I. I just had a question about who regulates your safety standard at this facility? You have to have an emergency action plan, and if you can make that plan or a similar plan that's currently in place available for us to see, to understand that. And also, who will be determining the preferred site or the alternate site? We'd like to know who's.
Tom will answer first question, I will answer last question.
I'll stick to the safety question, but currently we're in a process with the siting board regarding the regulation of the design. As Boris just said, Massachusetts has the highest standard in the whole country for LNG design. When the facility is in service, it will be regulated by the Department of Public Utilities. So there's an operation plan, a maintenance plan, a fire plan, a safety plan, a security plan, and I think I covered those.
Is there an emergency?
The emergency plan, yes. Yeah.
Is that updated yearly?
That's written once, trained, and evaluated on an annual basis. And that's right in the 220 CMR is the Mass Code for Operations, 980 CMR is the siting board regulations. So I hope that answers your question.
The decision would be our decision, and the decision will be driven by all the input that as we go through the process. We're learning about communities, we're learning about specific of the sites, so it is a project decision.
So will an emergency action plan be distributed for us to see, or
It'll be
one that's similar
prior to
a
the
facility that you already own and operate?
Prior to the facility going in service, it'll be part of this in filing.
Will it be before the town
It'll
is
be
able
part of
to-
public information. It'll be accessible.
I just want to have enough time to review
One
the.
person at a time.
I just want to make sure there's enough time for people to review the emergency action plan and have comments and questions about it, so all of our concerns could be wrapped in everything. Thank you.
Good question.
Lotti, L-O-T-T-I. I live on 53, number 10 Schoolhouse Road. We've been talking about the primary location. Nothing's been said about the secondary location. And why is the primary location really the primary location? Well, one question I have about that is, you're going to tap into the gas line approximately a mile or better away from the spot. You're going through a completely undisturbed area of woods, probably the last section of undisturbed woods in town. The other location is probably 1,000 feet away from the pipeline. What is so important about being on Route 20 area?
It is a good question. The sites have two different profiles, and as we consider different options, including kind of environmental impact, including community impact, for an industrial site of approximately 220 acres, the facility footprint will be 12, maybe maximum 15 acres, just to be safe. So in this case, you preserve, by acquiring a bigger site, you have 200 acres undisturbed, and then you have facilities that taken, what was this, 10% less than the area of the site. So advantage of the sites have two probably different, I mean, they take gas from the same pipeline, so that is a logic. It is a central location between Springfield, Boston, delivery points on this. So it does have logic. The first site on Route 20, just being the bigger landmass, allows obviously bigger exclusion zones, allows opportunity to be well screened from everybody else. We do plan to preserve as much forest as we can on this land. So it would be the logic of this facility would be a little bit not visible, not
Would it be
able
more
to hear.
expensive to do that in that location than the other?
It is a little more expensive. It is a little more expensive. You're exactly right. It's more civil work. You're exactly right, and your comment's totally appropriate. Second facility logic would be, as you can see, we called our project Northeast Energy Center. So in this case, you do have access to existing solar facility. You do have some gas customers in this location. So you kind of enter in somewhat developed area, and you have to enter it appropriately. So that's why these two sites have two different flavors, and that's why we diligently studying them at this point.
I don't like either one of them, so it's okay.
Understand?
My name's Paul Popinchak, P-O-P-I-N-C-H-A-L-K. I live at 34 Midland Street in Worcester. Question for you, gentlemen. This facility will have 250,000 gallons of LNG capacity per day, 1 million gallons of on-site storage. You know, if my math's right, roughly, if you ran the plant 4 days, you'd fill all your tanks. You say that the liquid on-site will be transported by truck to gas company customers such as National Grid. Who are your other customers? Is it your intent to export, put this LNG on the global export
No,
market?
and I try to make this point in my opening statement. We are not planning to provide any of this LNG for export. So all of this LNG will go for U.S. customers.
For U.S. customers?
Correct.
New England customers?
Most of them, by default, will be New England customers. Most of them will be Massachusetts customers. To start, next radius would be New England customers, and the biggest customers of these facilities are gas distribution companies. Gas distribution companies are customers number one of these facilities, but as we talk, LNG started to be used also in transportation. So, for example, in Port of Los Angeles, vessels are running on LNG. So we do want to be sure that in Boston people are not burning fuel oil too, but they will switch into LNG. But the first market, the need of the facility is established by gas distribution companies.
And what will this do to the price of natural gas in New England?
It probably will help to mitigate the cost of natural gas because New England is known for high natural gas prices during the peak time. So in general, when you increase supply of gas during the peak time, it's supposed to drive the prices a little down, so that's an intent.
That's the intent.
Richard McGrath, last name is McGrath. I can tell you that Route 20 is a bad road as far as accidents go. The proposed curb cut for this is on a curve in the road, as opposed to a half mile west of it, where 49 crosses Route 20, and there is already a traffic light. I'm pretty sure Sturbridge doesn't want us to have us access through into their town. But is there a reason why you're coming on the curve of the road and not down where there is already a traffic light that mitigates traffic at a straightaway?
Yes, there are reasons because, as we talk, right, every project is a little bit a balancing act. So the project does have a lot of wetlands, the land of the project. On Route 20 it does have a lot of wetlands. So going west, the challenge is the wetlands, to be sure that we are not disturbing existing wetlands. So we're trying to preserve as much as possible forest, and we're trying to preserve as much as possible wetlands.
The other question is, as we've stated before, there is a lot of litigation in town, capping our landfill, ExxonMobil, the issues with the Casella landfill, and a few other things. Is there going to be a bond that's placed that the town can draw on if there is a problem in regards to leaks or other problems?
I mean, it's bigger than a bond, and we state in our kind of filing the project cost of this facility is more than 100 million. So it is a sizable investment in the town of Charlton, and this facility will be in the town of Charlton, and this is pretty valuable from our point of view, pretty valuable investment.
Now, I'm talking about a bond that the town can draw on if there, we're in litigation for a lot of different things over the years, and it's affected our environment from well water up on H-Foot Road and so on. There is no plan right now that I know of putting any kind of water main up 10 Schoolhouse Road or Hill Road or anything like that, where this facility is going to be closest to.
But usually the bond required if the project or the entity does not have credit. Like the issue, for example, with ExxonMobil was not that ExxonMobil does not have a balance sheet. The issue was to identify who is responsible for example, oil leakage. So in this case, the project will have a balance sheet, the project will have credit, so the project will be financially sustainable.
But then we would have to go into litigation if there's a problem in regards to that.
Correct.
Perfect. Thank
Is there anyone else who would like to say a few words before we close tonight's hearing? All right, before we go off the record, I will take this opportunity to encourage those who are interested in further involvement in this case to think about the possibility of intervening or participating as a limited participant. Remember, however, petitions to do so must be received by the siting board no later than 5 p.m. on November 30th. Written comments regarding the project also are encouraged. Written comments are allowed at any time during this case, but they are most helpful, or can be most helpful to staff if they are filed by the November 30th date as well. As I said way back at the beginning of tonight, copies of the siting board's rules for intervening and participating are available at the table back near the stairs. However, there was one question about clarifying some more about what does it mean, what does it entail to be an intervener. I'm happy to talk to anyone about that. We'll be here for a few days after the end of the hearing. And you also can call us at our office in Boston. Again, that number is in the public hearing notice on the back page. And it's, if anyone wants the number, it's 617-305-3525. And any procedural questions that anyone has, we are always very happy to help with. We obviously can't discuss the merits of the project or anything to do with the substance of the case, but I freely admit that it's not an easy process to understand the various steps. And so anytime, if you do want to get further involved and you can't quite figure out what to do procedurally, just call us. Okay? And that's it. I want to thank you all very much for being here tonight, and good night.